Hello, Ceci. Thank you so much for doing this. So, Ceci, tell us where you were born and where you are right now, and maybe some anecdotal story connecting the two places.
Okay. Hello, Mauro. Where I am, I'm swimming in the ocean. I'm joking. I was born in Italy, in Rome. I am a marine biologist, a researcher at the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research. I can say that after my degree, it was not easy become soon a researcher. Italy does not invest a lot of money in research, so there are not several doors open. But I always identify myself with the sentence of Einstein. Einstein said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." And for me, was my life until now is this. I am very curious, and I'm curious in different ways. So I spent some time teaching in the school, time in research institute, time in environmental private companies. So I did a lot of things. In ecology, generalists are more competitive than specialists. And so, for this reason, I think I was able to achieve my goal to be a researcher and in contemporary, in the same time, to help and to suggest policy and manager. And for me, it's very important in all things I do in my life to find link among different topics, different issues, and different also people.
And um, all these connections that all these things that you did in your career, and all these connections that you want to do, were they somehow favored by the place where you were born and where you live?
I think so that benefits is, of course, Italy is in the middle of Mediterranean. I am a marine biologist, so sea is very important. Otherwise, I cannot do my work. And also, probably, and the location of Italy is that in strict connection with the Europe, and in my job, what happened at the level of European Commission and what happened in my country are strictly connected. So, living in Italy and in Rome, that is the capital, the center of policy, governments, administrations. And in the meantime, Rome is a city in front of the sea, so we have the possibility to work directly in the sea. Of course, is very important, and it is strategic. Probably in other countries, Spain, France, Greece, it will be the same. But I think so that the what change in the country you live is the approach. Italian people have a lot of fantasy, and in the research, the creativity is very important. And probably for this reason, for me, it was easier living in Italy because we can manage research, or we can manage also difficulty in our job using creativity.
Great. It's beautiful to connect fantasy with science, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people could say that the scientific method is very stiff and
Yeah.
everything, and it is, and it has to be, but it does allow for creativity and for fantasy, especially when you are like thinking about the scientific problem that you want to
Yeah,
address, right? I think that's the moment where all these criteria and fantasy can play a significant role.
yeah.
So being a person with a lot of fantasy, with a lot of curiosity, how do you see the world today? Do you think this is the world is moving forward? The world is moving backwards? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse?
Haha. In my opinion, the answer depends on the vision, if global or local. Um, I think that we have a planet divided between debtor and creditor states. We have a difference from the point of view of energy, life expectancy, schooling, availability of water, and so on, in depending where you are. And so, for this reason, we have to use the word GLocal. I say GLocal because for me, the vision is global, but the solution must be grafted into the local context. Uh, According the global vision, sure, the world is improving. For example, literacy has increased, life expectancy is increased, states are more democratic, pro capita gross domestic product increase, and so on. Infant, for example, mortality under 5 years old is decreased, and so on. But this improvement has caused worsening for the environment. Environment is my topic issue, so I can say that, of course, we have a lot of problem for the environment. The Global Risk Report in 2020 identified 5 top global risks. One is the extreme weather events. Another is the failure of governments and business to mitigate and adapt to climate change, man-made environmental damage and catastrophes, including also environmental crime such as oil spill, and so contamination is increasing, and we have a loss of biodiversity. So these 5 important risks, of course, depending on the improving of society. And so this is probably what we have to pay for this. But in my opinion, the problem is the time. In ecology, when a changing is very fast, the equilibrium, the dynamic equilibrium of an ecosystem can be compromised. Okay, and this is what is happening in our world. Everything is too fast. The changes are too fast. And the same is also in the cognitive context. Is happening the same. Everything is too fast. You can see when you work in your job, email very fast, information are very fast, language is become fast, and this is a problem, because our mind often fails to metabolize information, and so our quality of life seem worse. So I can conclude that for me, the world in the global vision is improving, of course, but our perception in the local vision is worsening.
Oh, this it's very interesting for me to, because I'm also a biologist. I work with biotechnology, and I have a special interest in genetic modifications. And I'm a great advocate of genetically modifications. And but being inside this topic as my specialty, I know very well the risks associated with these genetic modifications, and the evidence of the safety of genetically modified organisms is, for example, far stronger than the evidence of climate change. Okay, so like we are talking about a topic for which we have evidence for over the last, I don't know, 30 years, very, very safe. Still, the perception of risk by everyone else is that it's something very dangerous, something that we should fear. To make a parallel, we could look at uh, riding a car and riding on an airplane. The risk of you're probably at far higher risk of in your car going to the airport than on the plane going anywhere else, anywhere that you're going. However, the perception of risk when you are on the plane and it's
Yeah.
taking off and you're feeling, like weightless is very high. So
Yeah.
uh, um, I think it's a challenge for us looking ahead in balancing the real risk and the perception of risk. But and what I want to ask you is how can we be happy in this uh, um, in this situation where the global is improving? Of course, the global is improving because the local is improving, right? The global is made of many, many locals. However, our perception of this improvement, of course, these improvements in the local are not equal. So maybe the global is improving because a lot of places improved, while a lot of places are like didn't improve or even got worse. And so it's not really a kind of average. It's not something that we can look at the average. However, I hesitate to believe that the global is improving without the local improving. At the same time, I understand that the frustration on the local can be caused by this perception of risk. So maybe my question is, how do you see this risk versus the perception of risk and our ability to cope with these and improve our maybe look at the reality, right? Have a more like accurate view that would allow us to how this impacts our perception and our ability to be happy eventually.
The problem is that, as I told you, in fact, is the perception in the local vision is worsening because I think and during also this period, the COVID period was an example. Every day we receive very, very dramatic information. They really were dramatic, but probably they also worst because uh, I think that if you maintain people in the pessimism, is easier to manage for a few people, political and governments, and also the economic strategic view. Um, they think they are stronger because if the perception is pessimist, also something a little bit more positive, the perception is wow, something bigger, because your level is so pessimist, is so sad, is so anxious that
Yeah,
uh,
expectations are so low that
yes,
you get
yes.
happy with
Yeah,
whatever.
so of course, the world is improving, and the global vision is improving, and the local, obviously, or the local is improving, but the perception is not that, because I told you an example. When we talk about the global vision, okay, yes, we are, the life expectancies increase, but every day you listen that the problem is the environmental, the climate change, the extreme weather events, the fire, the certification, okay. And in this view, that is really because I'm working, for example, in the problem of marine litter, and the problem of the impact of marine litter in organism, and the problem is very big, is very, very big. It's not something that is not exist. But in order to avoid that people leave a bottle in the sea, in the beach, media and also we research are asked to say is very dramatic the situation, we exasperate the situation, otherwise the people are not sensitivity to the problem. So sometimes I can say that we have to extreme what is happening in order to receive 10% of reaction.
Yes. And I saw a talk from Dan Ariely, which is psychologist, behavioral psychologist, researcher, and about in the beginning of the pandemic, and he was saying that, of course, fear is the strongest of human emotions, right? And we can be, uh, um, we have even we have responses to fear. So it's very tempting to use fear as a way to try to to get attention of people. Media does that all the time, and he was saying that that was the choice of governance and on COVID to use fear,
Yeah,
and he was saying like if one example of this was okay, you can say that 1,000 people are dying every day,
yeah,
and like 500 people are still dying every day today of COVID in Brazil. And I remember when like 800 people in the beginning of the pandemic were dying daily in Italy, and
yeah,
that started to call the attention of the world. But you were saying to use the absolute number is a strategy,
yeah, yeah, sure.
because and it's a fear strategy, because it's if you should if you want to use a more if you wanted really to inform people and let them come to their own conclusions, you would put this number in comparison with something else. When you use the absolute number, you're just like shocking, and that is appealing to fear. He said, but the problem of appealing to fear is that it's you can get a strong response in the first moment, but
Yeah,
after that you cannot appeal to fear over and over and over again, because people don't buy it. They come to they get their own perception of what the real risk is. This may be influenced. Yes, it's very dangerous, but no one that I know died. And then they say, okay, it's not that dangerous. So people come to their own conclusions, and you cannot. So we should be very, very careful when appealing to fear, and that's why I'm so reluctant to alarmism as a
yeah,
strategy of mobilization and communication. Ceci, you mentioned uh, um, um, these five challenges that were in the forecast and the risk forecast. They were all environment, but do you see any other big challenges ahead of us as we try to move to a better world?
Um,
Or if not, how you'd prioritize
No, no,
one
no.
of
Yes, yes, yes.
those?
As I told you, I am a researcher. So, of course, the decarbonization and so on are challenging. But I think also for me there are other two important challenges that we have to overcross. One is the inequality, how to bridge the gap. This challenge for me is very important because during my life I could meet more and more time the problem of inequality and the problem of in integration of people that are poor and that the quality of life is not so good. And sure, the world has made significant progress in reducing poverty, the extreme poverty, but the inequalities is very strong in different parts of our world. Probably because we have to be lucky where we born. A different issue must be discussed in different countries. And these disparities are evident and are emerging. For example, in some areas, for example, the access to mobile or web technologies. And now we can see that in some part of the world we have no problem. In other parts, this problem exists, and this creates a strong inequality. The inequality can be manifested in different and form, and I think is very important um, to generate greater awareness, create a broader political support, identify and redefine public spending priorities to reduce inequality in access and in opportunities. And of course, I think that we have to improve in some part the technological change. And another important point, challenge for me is always social, is the women's right. I am a woman, so I can understand perfectly that we have, in Italy, we have some problems. And the difference between men and women exists. But we have several countries where this difference is very strong. Approximately 40 million people are victims of new form of slavery, and they are women. And just to give you an example, in this period, the crisis in Afghanistan is evident. Afghan girls and women are on the verge of losing their freedom and their dignity. They are returning to sad condition that they were in 20 years ago. And this is, of course, Afghanistan is the extreme point, But I can say also that in Italy, the salary for women and men are different. The social increase career into the institute are different, and so on. And so I think that is a very strong challenges that we think that, oh, again, women's rights. No, because we are do a lot of work to do go on.
Yes, and it's interesting. I remember seeing a presentation of a public health specialist from Sweden. It was a TED talk, and he was showing that a lot of these global improvements that we see from GDP growth and
Yeah,
especially reduce in child mortality, they can be traced back to one single action, which is to educate women. Allow so they can track it back, for example, in countries where you have a longer record of
yeah,
these things. So you can see in Sweden that the moment that women were allowed to go to school, child mortality drops. Like it's like the two graphs: women going to school, child mortality going down. So it's impressive that governments still don't realize how this to reduce this uh, or to guarantee
yeah, yeah,
women's rights. I would say
mm,
that's, of course, men and women are different, right? So but the thing is that they have the same rights,
yeah,
and if you just guarantee these rights, many other things can move forward just with this very very simple action. I will try to connect my next question with something that you already said, right? Because you mentioned those challenges forward, but you already said that you are working directly in one specific question, or maybe one specific of these challenges, which is marine litter. And, and I was wondering how litter and inequality can be connected, and how do you see your maybe your activity in marine litter either influencing or being influenced by the inequality? And just to give like a broader perspective, I know that poverty is probably it's a strong environmental problem,
yeah.
right? And but maybe I wanted to hear from you, working directly in an environmental problem with all this experience that you have in, like I said, countries with strong inequality. If we just take the Mediterranean, we
Yeah,
know
yeah,
that you can go from both extremes. So, and how do you see your professional choice of trying to solve the marine litter problem being influenced or influencing the inequality?
strong because I can give you an example. When I have the possibility to attend European Commission meetings and also Mediterranean meetings, okay? And when I talk with my colleagues from the north of Europe, for example, sometimes they cannot understand how is not possible to reduce in fast years the problem of marine litters. And for this reason, I just give you an example. European Commission established that if I want to consider a beach in a good quality, I don't have to count more than 20 items for 100 meters in my beach. So if I'm walking in the beach and I count 1, 2, 3, 4 objects, items of marine litters. If I count less than 20 pieces, I say, okay, it's good. And Italian, Greece, Spain that live in the Mediterranean, marine litter is something that travel in the sea, in the ocean. We don't have a
Yeah.
border. We
It
don't.
doesn't respect borders.
Yeah, yes, yes. And the North African countries, for example, has the big problem that they cannot manage all the waste in the land. They don't have the waste management treatment adequate and so on. So the input from these countries is very high. And so we try to explain to the North Atlantic or North Europe country, listen, we have two different countries. Your reality, very fast, equal, where money and the management of government are good, and another part of the world where the problems are geopolitical, where there are no money to invest in, for example, in the
Infrastructure.
reduction, yes, in infrastructure and so on. So for us, it's very difficult to achieve 20 items. And the answer was, yes, you are right, but if I have to consider, if I have defined good, 20 items are good. And they are right. So we decided to use 20 items for 100 meter of coast is good, but we know that for us, for the Mediterranean countries, probably within 50 years will achieve this goal. And this is an example that environmental problem can be very different if the condition is different, and this kind of problem is generating inequality, because the paradox is, okay, for me it's not possible achieve that number, so I do not do anything. I stop. Okay, because
Yeah.
if people, policymakers, governments don't say something to achievable, they say, okay, I don't invest money. For me, it's impossible to achieve that number, and so I do not anything. And so the inequality, as you told me before, is big.
This is I'm going to also to make this so interesting. So basically you're saying, and I heard this in Brazil before, very interesting comment from Miguel Milano. He said every environmental problem is a social problem.
Yeah,
So and it's in the end, I see a parallel also in technology, in which the technical challenge to do something, let's say nuclear fusion, okay,
yeah,
these are like huge technological challenges and very difficult. We need to invent things, to understand things that we invent, things that we don't have, understand things that we don't understand, to achieve like nuclear fusion.
yeah,
However, the challenge, the communication challenge to the society on how these technologies are going to improve their lives, or like how to leave no one behind, I think, are maybe greater. Definitely in my area of action, the challenges are the communication challenges are greater.
yeah,
There's one thing that I want to ask you if you know or not. I read this very interesting text about curves. So these are economical models that correlate to things,
Ah,
Kuznets.
ah,
And they applied the Kuznets curves to the environment, and they realized that until the per capita income of a country
mm,
doesn't reach $4,000, that
mm-hmm.
population doesn't care about the environment. So they can see that the you need to help them. But when you go over 4,000, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
population starts to demand a cleaner environment.
yeah,
So that's maybe it was in my mind when I asked like how it influences and how it is influenced, because the two things are connected.
yeah.
How can people, what are the problems that you face that maybe people that are listening to us could help
For this kind of challenge,
for this kind of challenge?
and
It
people,
can be as simple as like, please don't throw bottles of water on the ocean.
yeah, no, yeah, sure. No, there are several things that people can do for this issue. We are trying to communicate, to be for example, we are going to the school teaching to the childs that is better, yes, to put a bottle in the right place instead in the beach. We are trying to explain that a piece of plastic in the water can become very dangerous because the fragmentation of the macroplastics became microplastics, and the microplastics can be ingested by fish and so on. We are trying to explain to fishermen to don't abound to leave the net, because the net can create a problem for a fishery, sea turtles, for bentos. And so during this period, I can say now there is the G20, and in this period, and Italy is the president, has the presidents of G20, and the two main issues are biodiversity and the problem of marine litter. So a lot of things can we do by ourselves, people in general, by policymakers, and by private sectors. And I can say that, how can you help me? I don't know, because regarding these topics, I have a lot of help, because several countries are giving me the solution, the measure that they are applying in their countries. They are sending me papers of new solutions. So I can say that my network in these challenges is increasing, and because why? Sorry, because this is a topic that's fashionable now. Everybody is talking about the problem of marine litter. For me, now it's very easy to ask to everybody, could you send me your paper? Could you give me your measure in your country? And so I can ask. I'm an email. I people can find me in the research gate. There are all information, and people can help me tell me tell telling me
Spread the
if
word.
yes, and mm, and no, the problem is that all country now is doing something. The problem is that we don't have indicators that measures that some countries is increasing or not. It's very, very difficult now to identify if the question you say is worsening, is improving.
Yes.
It's very difficult because uh, private sector says no, no, no. We are the problem is decreasing because we are changing, for example, the composition of plastics. Now is everything is biocompostable, biodegradable, and is a good measure. But if we think to do that, probably and for example to build glasses in bio in material biodegradable, they use mice. They have to farm land, hectare of land in monoculture, and they produce CO2. And so one problem is resolved, and another problem
It's created. But
brought.
good, like you need help to create these macro indicators and that can help all
Yeah,
nations be
yeah,
compared in the same way.
yeah.
Ceci, three questions, rapid fire questions before I let you go. What is the book that you're reading right now?
Yeah, now I'm reading in Italian is Un indovino mi disse, a fortune teller told me.
I read this book. It's a
By
very, very
Tiziano,
interesting
yes,
book.
by Tiziano Tersani. For me, it's amazing because uh, this book forces you to reflect on what
Exactly.
it means
It
to
does.
travel today, on the
Exactly.
aseptic way in which we approach the lands and the cultures we do know.
It's a very
And
interesting book.
very interesting, yes.
So the second question is, do you take long or short lunch breaks?
During while I'm working, 20 minutes, no more, 20, 25 minutes. Well, while I'm working, when I'm not, I mean, in Saturday, Sunday, or Italian people spend a lot of
Italian people,
time.
yes, it's the
Yeah,
slow food movement.
yeah.
It's which I had the privilege to share many of these long lunches with you. Uh, the final question is Bitcoin. Are you a believer or a non-believer?
The answer is I don't know. I'm not interested to Bitcoin because because I think that probably is the my perspective for the money. I think so that is not so important
Yes,
to improve what our social status thinking some another some things that is virtual. For me, money is very important, but we need money. For me, are virtual. So another virtual perspective of money, I'm not interested because I think that sometimes I don't know. I say uh, people who does not give so importance to money sometimes is better because they have a greater predisposition to reinvent themselves and find
yes.
resource. Okay.
I see your point. However, this is another conversation. I have to show you uh, um, how these things connect and they connect with inequality and with so many of the social points that you care so much.
Ah.
Ceci, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
We
you,
have to do it again some other time.
okay, Mauro. Thank you, and good luck for everything.